Gaming Vault presents 15 hallucinatory scenes in video games. On their own, video games transport us to other worlds, teeming with immersion and fantastical elements. What happens when a game goes even further, causing the character to hallucinate or dream up even crazier, perhaps darker scenarios? Some games use this for narrative purposes and symbolism, while others implement some pretty awesome mechanics for gameplay. Let's take a look at 15 hallucinatory scenes in video games. Valkyr-induced nightmare, Max Payne. We've said it once and we'll say it again, Max Payne has had it rough. After his wife and daughter were brutally murdered by junkies high on Valkyr, Max devotes himself to finding out who's behind it all. Once that's revealed near the end, Max is injected with Valkyr and starts reliving the memories of his family's death, except it's incredibly nightmarish and full of such facets as walking a blood trail to his room and the walls oozing blood. MANNEQUINS, SPEC Ops: The Line. Walker's situation in SPEC Ops: The Line is hardly ideal, but following the white phosphorus deployment, he goes off the deep end. Hallucinations abound, chief among them being Conrad's voice, but one particular sequence stands out, aside from the ending of course. Walker is traveling through a room full of mannequins and eventually the lights start flickering and a heavy soldier starts attacking. Firing enough rounds at the heavy causes it to change places with a mannequin, and this continues until things go back to normal. Freaky, if not headache-inducing. Eternal Darkness. Much of the appeal in Eternal Darkness hinges on the sanity meter. If your character experiences enough trauma, bizarre things start to happen. This can range from being chopped into pieces, hearing loud noises out of nowhere, the controller disconnection notification popping up, and so on. It's genuinely creepy and adds to the overall disturbing nature of the plot. Ending. Dead Space. If anyone has gone through more pain than Max Payne, it has to be Isaac Clarke. Close to the end of Dead Space, Isaac realizes that his love, Nicole, is actually dead, and even worse, killed herself rather than dealing with the Ishimura's downfall. Things get turned up a notch when Isaac is assaulted by a necromorph Nicole at the end, the game fading to black before we could see what transpires. You could say it was unclear whether it was a hallucination or not at the time, however Dead Space 2 provided more context and cleared that up. This was just a hallucination of Nicole. Moment of Truth, Dead Space 2. Of course, it amps up further in Dead Space 2 where Nicole appears periodically to remind Isaac of his failure to save her. At one point, Nicole seemingly assaults Isaac, telling him to clarify who or what she is. It's at this point where Isaac finally accepts that he can't let go of Nicole because of his guilt. All of this is kind of a ploy by the marker to get Isaac to make it whole, but that's a whole other sequence of torture. Ink Monster, Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 was a pretty stellar game, but Jason Brody could be pretty insufferable. So, of course, the story would hop him up on some drugs, granting vivid hallucinations. The biggest is probably the battle with the Ink Monster, wherein a giant masked figure must be defeated with arrows. There are also smaller ink minions to deal with, and Brody eventually stabs the Ink Monster in the eye to kill it. Sadly, he's still an insufferable git when it's done. Layers of Fear. Like Eternal Darkness, it's hard to pick one crazy moment from Layers of Fear. The hallucinations of the protagonist permeate every single aspect of the game, from the painting of a dog being burned as it whines in the background, to the random writing appearing on walls or figures roaming the dark hallways. It's a madhouse, and it only gets more vicious as time goes by. If that kind of experience appeals to you, then Bloober Teams' next game, Observer, is also worth a look. SCARECROW Fight, Batman: Arkham Asylum. We've seen Batman experience some pretty terrible hallucinations when affected by Scarecrow's fear gas, but Batman: Arkham Asylum took the concept several steps further. In one sequence, the game seemingly glitches out, and it's Batman that's been captured by the Joker at the start of the game. Eventually, Batman sees several insane versions of himself, including one that's eating a rat, before entering a battle with a giant scarecrow, fighting skeletons along the way. Mad Hatter Fight, Batman: Arkham City. If that wasn't weird enough, Batman: Arkham City sees the player encountering the Mad Hatter. It's just a normal tea party with goons and rabbit masks, right? Things quickly get more bizarre as Batman is falling on a giant stopwatch into oblivion while wearing a twisted bunny bat cowl of sorts. It may not be Scarecrow levels of weird, but it did the job. Reflections, Bastion. Zulf's pipe in Bastion is quite the hallucinogen dreaming device. It takes the kid into his reflections, where he battles waves of foes as his backstory is narrated by Rux. Each subsequent wave reveals more about the kid, including the tragic story of his mother, his time on the Riplin Walls, and where he was when the calamity struck. Digital trips, Watch Dogs. Digital trips in Watch Dogs function as minigames accessible through your phone. The app will put Aiden into a dreamlike state where he can perform such actions as running over demons to keep a vehicle going and finding hidden cyborgs. He can even control a giant spider tank to wreak havoc on cops and satellite relays. Hilariously though, these are probably the best parts of the original Watch Dogs. Phantom Paths, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Many characters have experienced excruciating deaths in the Metal Gear Solid series. R.I.P. Gray Fox. Paz is definitely near the top, suffering extreme torture as a POW before having a bomb removed from her stomach, that too without anesthesia. Following her death in Ground Zeroes, Paz re-emerged in the Phantom Pain having lost her memory. Eventually, it is revealed that Paz is a hallucination, the medical room where she was found still being under construction. Venom Snake eventually accepts her death as the hallucination offers some form of farewell. Grassroots Michael, Grand Theft Auto 5. It's hilarious to see some of the reactions that Grand Theft Auto 5's protagonists have to weed. When Michael takes a bit from Barry in the Grassroots Michael mission, he's transported to another world where waves of aliens must be killed with a minigun. It's a pretty trippy experience and also a neat way to experience the minigun early, if nothing else. Guy Savage, Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater. How do you distinguish between those who have played the original Metal Gear Solid 3 on PS2 and those who have only experienced the HD collection or Snake Eater 3D? 2 words: Guy Savage. In the PS2 version, if players save and quit the game after Volgan's torture, they can quickly reload and see Guy Savage. He essentially wields hook swords and fights zombies in a dream sequence before turning into a beast and running on all fours. Snake wakes up eventually, and while the whole sequence was meant to be a preview for a full game, according to writer Shuyo Murata, such game never came out. Dreams, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. Thanks to Mario entering Luigi's dreams and Mario and Luigi Dream Team, players can encounter all kinds of bizarre scenarios. Dozens of Luigi-noids coming to Mario's defense, a giant Luigi that goes around beating up bosses. The fact that Dreamy Luigi, Luigi's dream counterpart, turns into a giant to protect Mario from the Dreamstone spirit is also fairly awesome. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.